What's going on, Hope Community Church? This is Pastor Trevor, and I'm joined by
Pastor Nathaniel.
And here we are for our series recap. Man, we're so thankful to be with you guys. And as always, we start with a really cool box of mini questions.
Let's go. Again, we should not a paid ad.
Not a paid ad.
But table conversations from Practicing the Way.
If you want to pay us and be our first sponsor.
They're trying to raise money, not sponsor things.
But man, this is from Practicing the Way and came out of their community source. This is a thing that you guys can buy, or if you go to practicingtheway.org, you guys can actually get this for free as a digital printout. So if you just want the questions or just want to go through questions, or you're trying to find questions to ask during dinner time and things like that, this is free that you can get as a digital, or you can buy the physical. I think it's only about $30 or something like that. It's not too crazy there, but hey, we got a fun question to get into to kick us off. And what we got here today? Ooh. All right, Nathaniel, are you ready for this one?
I'm ready.
What was an irrational fear that you had as a child?
Can I see?
Yeah.
Sorry, what is it? What is an irrational fear that you had as a child?
Yeah.
This was dumb. Which is perfect. That's what they're asking about. When I was a kid, and I actually think this is a common fear. Like, this happens in Home Alone also, I think. But when I was a kid, we like had a big playroom and stuff in the basement of our house.
Okay.
And I would spend tons of time in there, of course. But like, I was afraid of like the rest of the basement. So like, when I would go upstairs, I would always like sprint. Yeah, sprint. Like I'd like stand at the door of the family room, the playroom, and I would like open it, and I would just like run up the steps. My brothers told me that there was a hobo that lived in our basement.
Yeah, and you can never find him.
And I was always afraid that he was going to chase me up the stairs.
Why do I feel like that's such like a common experience with kids? Like I had that, my brother had that,
sorry, afraid of the basement or a hobo lived in your basement?
Maybe not the hobo.
Oh, okay. That's what my brothers told me.
As soon as you turn the lights off on the basement, you sprint up the stairs. Yes.
You gotta run.
You cannot get snagged by whatever's down there.
But you get in Home Alone, the furnace in the basement?
Oh, yeah. He's scared of the furnace. Yeah. Uh-huh. Man, we had a basement, yeah. Every time turn the lights off. Wasn't a hobo fear.
Yeah, I don't know. That's not a believable story. But that is what my brothers told me, and I trusted them.
Man, I think mine was always with water, and like I hate the ocean. If I can't see the bottom, I don't want to. Even now, so maybe it's not really like a crazy, I guess it is still an irrational fear. I just always had a fear, even when it was like swimming pools, that a random crocodile was going to come up and snag my feet.
Yeah, right.
Because Tip City, Ohio's public pool is where all the alligators of all of the U.S. would just gather and sit in.
Yeah, Ohio, famous for alligators.
Yes, but very famous for alligators. And so my fear was always water. I don't mind swimming now, but like, even now, if I'm in Lake Michigan or something and I can't see underneath me, I don't want to swim.
Yeah, I mean, I'll say like the ocean, that's not irrational. Like the ocean is scary. Like I call that healthy respect. I call that healthy respect because the ocean is powerful.
Yeah.
And like, the deep parts of the ocean are like really scary.
Yes.
Open water, scary.
Yeah. I could be on a boat. I could do boats, but don't ever have me on I will
just like out in open
water.
water.
I will flip out. Yeah.
Yeah, I would not like that either. And to your point too, there was a movie when I was in college. It was like the peak of the Sci-Fi Channel original movies.
Uh-huh.
Sharknado most famously.
Sharknado.
That was actually pretty late in their thing. They had all kinds of ridiculous movies. I mean,
Lost the Pastor.
There's one called like Ice Spiders,
Mm-hmm.
where there were like these prehistoric giant spiders that were frozen in ice naturally, and
Yeah.
they thawed out, of course.
Yeah.
There was Frankenfish.
Frankenfish.
Yep,
Let's
great
go.
one. Anyway, they had one called Ghost Shark.
Mm.
And I know now this is going to be, I'm going to like call back your fears. There literally was a ghost shark and it swam up through the shower drain and
Interesting.
ate somebody in their shower. It swam up through the shower drain. So, there you go.
In the
So you got to watch
movie?
out for the ghost sharks.
Are you talking about like in the movie?
In the movie Ghost
okay.
Shark?
I was like, I thought you were saying like this was a real thing that like happened, and I was like,
Oh,
I'm skeptical.
that didn't happen. In the movie Ghost Shark, the ghost shark swims up the shower drain and attacks somebody in their shower.
Do you know what gave me an irrational fear for a time? We were taking a family vacation to Gatlinburg, Tennessee. We had a cabin, and my brother was taking a shower, and I started to hear him scream, and we kind of went, and there was a scorpion that came out through his thing, out the bathtub thing, into the bath.
Nope, that's a big no.
And
that's a big no.
Yeah, I didn't even know scorpions were near.
I didn't know Tennessee had scorpions.
Yes.
First off.
So that was very scary. I watched myself in the shower and always watched the drain the entire time.
Well, you have to. Yeah, that definitely, again, that's healthy respect. That is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The bears, I'm cool with the bears.
Yeah.
A
you know when bears are coming.
Yeah.
Anyway. Yeah. No, Kimmy, when Kimmy and I first started dating, she visited some of her family in Arizona.
Yeah.
And she told me like she would go outside and sit in their backyard to talk to me on the phone at night. And she told me that her aunt and uncle gave her a black light because I guess scorpions illuminate in black light.
Yeah.
And so they're like, hey, you need to take a black light if you're going to go outside.
Yeah.
And I was like, why do people live there? That sounds horrible.
Yeah. I've never seen, I know you're supposed to and there's something that happens, but I've never seen like how a scorpion reacts to a black light.
I don't know. We could Google it when this is over.
Yeah.
But there you go. We've fallen off the rails. So our irrational fears are hobos in the basement.
Hobos in the basement.
And alligators in pools. And scorpions.
And shower tray.
Yeah. I don't know. It sounds right.
This is how things work. Yeah.
That's great. That's great.
But hey, so you just wrapped up this series 3G, not about cell phone towers.
No, but that's what I thought about.
Yeah.
And it's funny because that's old now. Like 3G
old.
is like 15 years ago. They're like, we've got the faster 3G.
Now I'm curious. If you were to make it 5G, what would be the 2 extra Gs?
Oh my gosh. I don't know. Gizzards.
Are we in New Orleans?
So Thanksgiving, gizzard, Thanksgiving. I don't know. I don't know what the other G's would be. That's why we only did 3.
Yeah.
I don't know what the other G words would be.
Yeah, that's fair.
Grace.
Yeah, that's a good one. Grace. God.
Yeah, godliness.
Godliness.
I don't know.
Yeah. Did you have a favorite out of 3 weeks that you were more, I don't know, not necessarily more passionate, but you were like most excited for out of 3?
I think I think the one that I enjoyed writing the most was gratitude. I think the one that I felt most passionate about that was needed was generosity. And like, that was the one that I was like, yes, this is like what we need to be talking about right now. Yeah. And gathering is awesome. I feel like we talk about that more than we talk about the others.
Yeah.
Which is good, right? I actually believe, just to peel the curtain back, right? I believe that like preaching, there are very few singular sermons that will stick out in people's minds for their life, right?
Yeah.
Like, even people who are watching this video who are a regular part of our church, they probably couldn't think back over the last 5 years and be like, all these sermons that they might have one
One
sermon.
thing that popped out, maybe
They
like
might
a
have one
point.
sermon that could be like, when Nathaniel preached about this, I still remember that.
Yeah.
But I actually think a lot of preaching is, what are the things that we keep coming back to, right? Like, what are
Yeah.
the themes that we're learning over time together?
Yeah.
And so I think that matters.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Hmm. Yes, that's good. Yeah, because even yeah, we've talked about this before. Like even when I was in your youth group before, like I don't
I use
remember.
this example all the time. I use this example when I'm not with you.
I don't remember necessarily the content of most. It's not that they were like awful and
So to
like
be clear,
slept.
what Trevor's talking about is, for people who don't know, Trevor was in the youth group that I was the youth pastor of.
Yeah.
So however many times anybody here has heard me preach, Trevor has heard me preach even more than that.
Mm-hmm.
All right, now you can continue.
There was only the only thing I deeply remember, and just because I thought it was fun, was when we did the series Bear Fruit. And I just remember the name because it was a bear with like a fruit basket on his head.
Yeah, Kami designed that.
And I don't remember the content. I'm guessing it's about bearing fruit, but
It's about the fruit of the spirit.
yeah.
That's what it was about. It was about fruit of the spirit, bear fruit.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it was a bear with fruit on its head.
Yeah.
Because bear fruit.
Because bear fruit.
But it was about, the fruit of the spirit.
And but yeah, I mean, when it comes to that kind of content, what like the week to week, I don't remember that kind of thing. But what kind of made you when it comes to the generosity gratitude gathering, what was it that made you want to preach a series around those three?
Yeah, I talked about this a little bit at the top of our sermons. It was pretty natural. Excuse me. I was just thinking about, um, yeah, the themes of things that culturally we think about this time of year. And as I was thinking about that, I just realized that all those things are also scriptural. I talked about that, but generosity is a thing that we think about this time of year. And
Yeah.
anybody who is, people know this because they give, but also if you're connected to a nonprofit or a charity of any kind, you know that this is like peak fundraising time because people are more likely to be generous this time of year than other times of the year. And so generosity is something that we culturally think about this time of year. And then gratitude, of course, like Thanksgiving is literally just about gratitude, and gathering too. We all have extra dinners and parties and stuff this time of year. And I was just thinking culturally, what are we preparing for? And I realized like, well, some of the beauty of this is these are all things that are embedded in scripture. And it's another one of those things for me of scripture knowing, right? The truth that God teaches us was known before even culture knew it, right?
Yeah.
Like the things that culture knows because it's cultural, scripture has been teaching that for way before our culture existed,
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So we kind of hop into, you start with week 1 of generosity. What did you use kind of prepping for that series? What was some inspiration that you used going into your series on generosity or week on generosity?
Yeah, I, um, I went back to, and I've used some of this before. One of my big resources is I just had a friend who had shared with me notes of a sermon series they had done on generosity.
Yes.
And I was really generous. And so I was looking back through her notes about it, and I just kind of picked some things. I was just kind of looking through. Hers was a 5-week series on generosity,
Okay.
and I was just kind of reading through and
Yeah.
seeing, hey, what do we need to know right now? Um, and that the passage 2 Corinthians 8 and 9, I've actually used that passage before, even to talk about generosity here at Hope. But the thing that just like really jumped out to me, this is like not even like Bible Project or whatever, which is usually where I go.
Yeah.
That phrase of like God provides for us in a way that we can always be generous, that just like got stuck in my brain. This idea that generosity is not built around our circumstances, but it's a posture.
Yeah.
And we have to trust that God will provide for us in a way that we can always be generous. And, excuse me, I decided to drink seltzer water instead of coffee, and now I'm burping.
Always gets burped.
Now I should have made a poor choice. But yeah, I think just this idea of like God, it might look different in different seasons. And of course, people have the capacity to give in different ways based on their circumstances. But generosity in and of itself is a posture of your heart. You know, I've referenced the quote before. And again, it's just funny because Dave Ramsey is somebody who is annoying to me sometimes. But what he's right about is like money just makes you more of what you already are. And I used that quote before, and I think he's right. Like we tell ourselves this lie that will be generous when we're in a different season. But the truth is, if you're not generous now, you probably won't be generous then either.
Yeah.
And if you are generous now, you will be likely to be generous then.
Yeah.
But oftentimes when circumstances change and we have the more ability to be generous, we just continue to spend it on ourselves. And then we still feel like it's tight, you know, because instead of being generous, we take out a loan to buy a new car. Or, you know, instead of being generous, we go on a vacation and then it's still tight. Or, you know, and it's not that buying a new car or going on vacation is bad. It's just generosity is a posture that we have.
Yeah.
And it's a trust that God will provide for us. And so that really got stuck in my brain. And then just the thing that I always preach anytime I talk about generosity is just this, it's freedom, right? Generosity is not about following the rules. It is about freedom. And when we learn to be generous, this is not about being a good Christian. It's about experiencing freedom from dollars. And so then just my favorite part always when I get to talk about that is just, again, when Paul says, you got to wrestle with the Lord about what you're to give. And he's like, hey, look, I'm not saying that your life should be really hard and you make somebody else's life easy.
Yeah.
But the truth is, we all know that we probably are more blessed than many other people. And so we could give from the extra. But then he says, you need to wrestle in your heart what to give. And I always just love to remind the people of hope who want to be frustrated with me because they think that I'm calling them out for not giving. I always like to remind people, like, I don't see giving statements.
Yeah.
I get a dollar amount. I know the same thing that goes out in the same thing that goes out in the e-newsletter that everybody gets. I get a total. But I don't know who gives. I don't even know if you give at all, let alone how much you give. And so if you think that I'm trying to call you out because you're not giving enough, I don't know. So maybe, just maybe, that conviction is not coming from me. And I will say that again on this podcast for anybody listening, that if you feel convicted by that, I don't know if you give or how much you give. So the conviction is not coming from me. It's not coming from me.
Pick that up with the Holy Spirit.
That's right. That's right. Because it's not coming from me, because I don't know.
Yeah, I love, you talked about that generosity like brings this freedom with it. How do you think, because it, in a way that for most of our minds, that doesn't make sense. How would you kind of say, like, hey, this is how this brings freedom for us?
That is a great mystery. I seriously, you can talk to anybody who understands generosity, they would say the same thing. They would say, I don't understand how this works, but I'm just telling you, when I started to give more away, I started to have more. And nobody can really fully explain that. It just is a thing that is true. And it's like Elijah with the widow who has enough oil every day. It's like, like, I don't know, when we learn to give it away, somehow God just like provides for us what we need.
Yeah.
And I don't know that I can explain that. But I do think part of it, the spiritual truth, is, again, Jesus talks about it as you cannot serve both God and money. And when we are obsessed with our dollars, when we aren't generous, it is revealing the posture of our heart. That is, I trust my money more than I trust anything, right? When I can't be generous, it's revealing my attitude in my heart that what I believe will carry me is money. And generosity is a tangible expression of saying, money does not take care of me.
Yeah.
God does. And I don't have to hold tightly onto this money because my God is the God with cattle on 1,000 hills. And if I let go of this money, God will provide for me in some other way. And I can trust that God is who takes care of me, not my bank account.
Yeah.
And I think that's part of the freedom is that. I mean, again, we tell ourselves this lie that having more money will make us feel better. And it's impossible to ignore that there is a level of that is true, right? Like, of course, there is a livable wage that is needed to, like,
do things.
yeah, and I understand
Survive. Yep.
that. But we tell ourselves this lie that if we have, if we all made $500,000 a year, all of our problems would go away.
Yeah.
And that we see this time and time and time again in culture, that we just objectively know that is not true.
Yeah.
So, to quote the great theologian, Notorious B.I.G., mo money, mo problems, right? Am I right? Mo money, mo problems. And we just see that time and time again in our culture, that people who have more money than they could ever possibly need are living lives that are really miserable. And we watch the documentary, and then we watch the biopic that comes out and wins a bunch of Academy Awards about how hard their lives are.
Mm-hmm.
And money did not solve their problems. But that's the lie that we tell ourselves.
Yeah.
And generosity is tangibly expressing, I know money is not the solution to my problems.
Yeah. That's awesome.
And I'm bad at it. I'm obsessed with money. I say this every time we preach about it. This is the lesson that is hardest for me to learn.
Yeah.
It's really hard.
Was there a moment in your life when you were impacted by generosity, not necessarily by receiving it, but through the act of giving? Is there a moment where you felt that like freedom from things, where that like weight was taken off, that you want to talk about at all?
Like sharing about the freedom that I've experienced in generosity?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the thing that first comes to my mind is when I started pastoring as a youth pastor in Ohio, famously, youth pastors don't make tons of money.
What?
Yeah, I know. Yeah, pray for Trevor. If you guys are looking for a way to be generous to Trevor this holiday season. Yeah, I mean, Kimmy and I, when we first started in ministry, like, we were not tithing. Like, we weren't doing it. And both of us are pastors' kids, raised in the church. And I was a pastor. Like, I understood the theological principle, but we didn't have a lot. And it seemed impossible for us to do it.
Yeah.
And eventually I was just really convicted about, we need to do this. And it is exactly how I described it. I wish that I could like show you the like science behind it or whatever. But I'm just telling you, when we started giving 10% of our income back to the church, which again, like as a pastor, sometimes that's really weird.
Yeah.
Like this is a thing that is actually annoying as a pastor, right? We're like, the church is also our employer.
Yeah.
So like, I literally am earning money from the church and then being taxed on that money and then giving a portion of it back. And sometimes it's going to be like, just can we take like a 10% pay cut and call that a gift to the church? Then I've got to pay taxes on it? I don't know. But again, it's about the principle of it.
Yeah.
It's about the principle of it. And that was a hard thing too. But anyway, when we started giving back what God had given us, it was weird. Like Kimmy and I knew, especially early in our marriage, I mean, like we had months where we finished with like, we've got, $75 left, that's like all the money we've got.
Yeah.
Like we lived that and we knew what it was to be in tight spots. And when we started giving, it was just incredible the way like all of a sudden, somehow, even though we had less, we had more. I don't like all of a sudden, like we had money left over when we were paying our bills, and you know what I mean? Like it was incredible the way God would do that. And sometimes it was a miraculous thing, that would happen. I mean, I've had things happen even here at this church where we've had big expenses and we didn't know how we were going to make ends meet that month. And literally just somebody handed me an envelope and said, hey, I feel like the Lord wanted me to give this to you.
I've had that happen.
And
it's crazy.
It's so crazy. And I don't know, but that's the big thing I think about is when I was a youth pastor, we had nothing. and it was hard for us to start giving. But when we did, all of a sudden it was wild how all of a sudden it just
Yeah.
opened up. I
Yeah.
don't know.
Yeah. I remember there was a time where um it was during my first internship, and I was meeting with my coach at the time. His name is Zach, and I was like, we're talking about generosity and giving and stuff like that. I was like, this feels weird to just give back to the thing that's giving me the money.
Yeah. For other people, it's like if
For
your
other
job
people, yeah,
your job pays you and then you just give
yeah,
money
you
back to
just give it back to your employer. Yeah, it seems really weird. But yeah, he challenged me, and he was like, "Yeah, s- it's not about just trying to give back just because. It's about changing your relationship with how you view your money." And that helped me a lot to kind of rethink about it in that sense of like, man, it's a blessing. I've been blessed with this thing, and I can try to act like I actually have ownership, but I don't actually truly have ownership.
Yeah, none of it's
So,
mine to begin with.
yeah. And so, um, it's a practice, at least for me, of just releasing that control that I want to have over it, that want and need to feel like I have this thing. This is mine. And just recognize it's not. This is nice, but it's not mine.
Yep. And I think a big part of this, and I know we got to move on to the others, but the big part of this, I think, too, is the cultural battle that we fight with generosity. Um, because there is so much in our culture about independence,
Yep.
right? And
Hustle culture.
wisdom, and we have this subtle messaging all the time. Sometimes it's not even that subtle of like, if you don't have very much money, it's
Mm-hmm.
because you're stupid.
Yeah.
Like we equate that, right? Like we equate it with if you're smart, you have money.
Yeah.
And if you don't have money, you're stupid.
Yeah.
Which of course is not true. But that's the message of our culture because
Mm-hmm.
we believe in America that if you make good choices, anybody can get wealthy
Yeah.
if you just are smart. If you're smart enough and you handle your money well, everybody should be rich.
Yeah.
And of course, there's a lot of things that go into that, but that's the messaging that we're given.
Yeah.
And so giving money away when it's already tight, that feels like one, we don't want to feel like we have to depend on
Mm.
people. We don't like that.
Yeah.
Right? Like, as incredible as it is when you are wondering how am I going to make this work and somebody gives you a gift, there's also a little bit of shame that comes with
Yeah.
that you had to have help.
Yeah.
Because we want to be independent. And so we got to fight that.
We want to feel like we have everything figured out
That's
on
right.
our own. Yeah.
But then there's also this this push to be wealthy in America because wealth is not just comfort, it is also respect.
Yeah.
We respect, the heroes in our culture are people like, excuse me, Rockefeller and Ford and, these titans who have gone from nothing and they built this huge empire.
Yeah.
And, yeah. And so if you can do that, you are respected, you're smart, we want to learn from you.
Yeah.
And so the inverse is true also, where then you feel like if you're poor, it's because you're bad at money,
Mm. Yeah. Yeah.
And so anyway, we got to fight that too. That's why we don't want to give it away.
Yeah. I also just think about how consumerism and our ads have even changed how like advertisements is not actually, if you think about the last few ads you've watched, it's not actually about the product. It's more so about like, if you want to be this kind of person, or if you want to be happy, be free, be whatever, you need this. Buy this thing to become this. And then we're always let down because the thing never actually gives us that. And a little bit, I think sometimes too, is it's hard for us to want to give monies away is because I think sometimes we still believe subconsciously, if I just save some to buy this thing, I will actually experience a better level of joy.
Absolutely.
But I know we had to kind of move on from generosity. And so we popped into gratitude. I know you kind of talked about Tyler Staton's book. We're reading that as a staff and everything. Um, and I would also love to just hear from you. Um, how big of a different direction did you take it um from what you were initially writing to after reading Praying Like Monks, Living Like Fools, that kind of turn?
Yeah, I mean, I talked a big game, like it was really different. I think some of the practices were similar, the gratitude journals, prayer of examine,
Yeah,
similar practices.
yeah.
Um, but this idea of connecting it to prayer and talking with God about the mundane things was a really
Mm,
different direction than I think what I imagined I was gonna do.
mm,
Um, I think because even the gratitude journals and the prayer examine it is that's almost like a holdover of practices from the sermon I was going to write, which
yeah.
was more just about taking time to think about the ways God has blessed you.
Mm,
You know what I mean?
yeah.
Which is
Yeah.
different from this like Paul's language, right? Like pray without ceasing. That's kind of how it became is like Staton's book was really impactful for me because it's almost like gratitude is a way of praying without ceasing, which I think is really beautiful. This idea that when we learn to include God in the everyday things, it leads to gratitude because it reminds us of God's active presence all the time. And so instead of having it to set aside intentional time to think about how has God blessed me, which is a great
Yeah.
practice, it is just throughout your day all the time reminding yourself of God's presence, which
Yeah.
I think is a really beautiful thing.
Yeah. Mm. Do you think or why do you think we often overlook gratitude in our spiritual life?
Hmm. Um, I think some of it is what you mentioned before, right? Like we live in a very consumeristic culture that is constantly telling us that we need more.
Mm,
So we don't think about gratitude often because
yeah.
we are too busy being focused on what we don't have.
Mm,
The culture that we live in is saturated in reminding us the things that we do not
do
have.
not have, yeah.
And so it's hard for us to be grateful
Mm,
because we're constantly pining for that thing that we don't have.
mm,
I think that's a big part of it.
yeah.
The cultural messaging
Yeah.
is that. Um, I think like the example that Kimmy and I always use, and I haven't given up on this dream, but is like when we were kids, like the all American vacation was Disney World,
Mm,
right? Like, and that was a thing that like not every family, but like that was like a thing that a normal family
yeah.
could plan for and do. And it was like the all American vacation.
Yeah.
Going to Disney World was like the thing. And everybody who's watching this knows Disney World is increasingly more and more expensive
It is so
all the
expensive.
time. I could take my family to Europe for less money than going to
I
Disney.
went just myself and I felt like I spent too much money.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. Like literally we could go to Europe and
Yeah.
take a European vacation for less money than taking my kids to Disney World.
Yeah.
Unfortunately like my kids don't care as much about like
About Europe.
Tower Bridge is like, you know, they don't care as much about going to the Louvre as they
Yeah.
would about like,
Why are the cars on the other
riding
side
Space
of the
Mountain.
road?
Yeah, anyway, but it was just one of those things of like growing up and then like as a young adult and when kids are born like you have this picture of like I want to do this. And like when I was a kid, like when I was in first grade or something, my parents and my grandparents they like went to Disney World and like did
Yeah.
the thing, you know what I mean? And like I just have always had this dream of doing that for my kids. And that is becoming really challenging to picture
Mm.
because it is crazy expensive.
Yes.
But um, what happens is then every time, especially this time of year, because they're trying to get you to book a Christmas,
Yeah.
all the ads on TV are about taking your family to Disney World for
Yeah.
Christmas or whatever. And I'm constantly reminded of the thing that I don't have.
Mm.
And that makes it hard to be grateful for all the things that we
Hmm.
do have. And yeah, I mean, I think that's a big part of it.
Yeah.
Is the cultural messaging is constantly reminding us of what we don't have.
Yeah. Mm. Do you think um when when we kind of talk about like prayer journals and stuff like that, do you ever think there's a danger in sometimes us treating every small thing too formulaic? Or do you think is there anything to be aware of just having the same thing of, okay, I'm gonna do my three things and not really think about it again at all? Or do you think it doesn't matter in the sense of like, hey, as long as you're keeping an eye out?
I mean, I think anything can become formulaic, right?
Yeah.
That this is the nature of church. It's why I believe there are so many different classical disciplines. I don't think anybody actually practices all of the disciplines.
Yeah.
I think at least the way it's worked for me is um, in different seasons of my life, different practices have been meaningful to me in different ways.
Yeah.
And so I don't know if that's the thing that still is meaningful for you, then that's great. But I don't know. I had a boss in Ohio, my boss, Steve Southards. He was talking about like your calendar. I was having a conversation with him about keeping a calendar.
Yeah.
And my kids were little and, they weren't even in school yet. And I was just trying to get my calendar set up. And I really admired the way that he was able to do that. And so I was like, hey, how do you do this and all this stuff? And I was like, here's the thing that I'm running into is like right now, these are the things that we're doing and this would work. But, like what happens then when my kids start having stuff and how do we make that work? And then how does it,
Yeah.
and he just said, Nathaniel, stop. He just said like, do what works now for as long as it works. And then when it doesn't work anymore, adjust and figure out a different thing that works.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
don't not do now what works because you're afraid that someday it won't.
Mm.
And I guess that'd be my thing is like,
Yeah.
maybe someday your gratitude journal will feel formulaic and you will have to wrestle with God about what's a different practice I could do to
Change
be
it.
grateful again. But don't not do the journal now because someday it might become
go.
formulaic. That's dumb. If right now it is helping you be grateful, then do it for as long as you can.
Yeah.
And as long as that is helping you remember gratefulness, keep doing it.
Yeah.
And don't just skip out on the whole thing because someday you might have to adjust it. That's silly.
Yeah.
And I think that same thing is true with any of the disciplines where you say, well, can fasting become formulaic? Probably, yeah, it could. But don't not do it now because someday it will be that way. Or don't not have, Lectio Divina now because someday it might become formulaic or whatever. I think anything can become formulaic. This is, I think, the nature of people. But it doesn't have to be. Some things never are.
Yeah.
And so anyway, that's what I'd say to that.
Yeah. That's good. That's good. Yeah. And then in the final week of gathering, how about that one? What did you kind of use as an inspiration for gathering?
Yeah, that one was a big Bible project one. They didn't really talk about it as gathering though. I literally, I mean, again, I just feel like the Lord led me to it. Just this idea of, I started with Sabbath, honestly, just of like, Sabbath is this weekly thing that is meant to be practiced in community with people. And then that led me to this thinking about the festivals that they had done and, how much intention there was in the way God set up his church or the people of God, the way they should live. There's so much intention about gathering in the way that that's set up. And I don't know. I don't know. I actually wish, I don't know. I don't think that I presented that in the way that I had wanted to. Nobody said anything to me. Nobody ever would, right? But nobody would be like, that wasn't very good, Nathaniel. Nobody would say that. But that's the thing that
shake your hands like do better next time.
Yeah, that was the thing I was trying to emphasize is this: from the beginning, God clearly had organized his people together. It was important to him, and and then just that there's power when the people of God gather, and so I think that should be important to us.
Yeah.
And I think making space for people and gathering together, and again, even in the church, specifically in the church, that matters. And I think, again, the thing I also feel like I didn't present really well was just, again, I was really embarrassed for a long time. Like I didn't have a testimony because, I grew up in a pastor's family and I don't have a huge amount of church hurt. My church complication is less church hurt and more just like jadedness, right? Like that's another sermon for another day. It's not like the church had done things to deeply harm me. It's more of just like, yeah, I know. I've seen this thing before. You know what I mean? Like I've been there, done that or whatever,
Yeah.
I know how this works or whatever. You see the behind the scenes sometimes. Or like, every time you go to a church, you're like, you're like judging the effectiveness. You know what I mean? Like you're critiquing everything. That's right. Every time you go to a church, you're like critiquing everything that happens.
Yeah.
That's
I could have done this better.
That's like struggle that I have with church.
Yeah.
Is even in our own services, right? Instead of being able to just like let yourself experience it, you're constantly critiquing everything that's happening. And so that's it. It's not like that church really harmed me. It's just it's that kind of a thing. So I have some of that. But for my upbringing, I mean, the church was very good to me, and the church loved me and empowered me, and I was really embarrassed by that because I know so many people's stories are not that way, and like my family, I know like some people didn't have good families, and holidays are not like looking forward to time with family thing, and I get all that too. And I used to be embarrassed by that, but I've just kind of come to believe, like now that I'm raising my own kids, I'm like, why would I be embarrassed? Like this is literally what we pray for.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like this is what I pray for my kids is that they would look back and say, yeah, the family that I was raised in was a safe place for me. And the church that I was raised in took care of me and loved me.
Yeah.
And I don't know why I need to be embarrassed by that. I can acknowledge that that's not what it's been for everybody, but I feel like the Lord now is saying, hey, but maybe instead of saying, see, the church can't be this, maybe we should say, no, maybe I know this isn't for everybody, but this is what we should strive for because it can be this. And I've lived it. And so anyway, just this idea of how can we recapture that thing again? You know, how do we, I don't know. I struggle sometimes with calling the church family because again, that conjures up negative images for some people. And then for other people, it implies a thing that I think is unrealistic. Because again, a church like ours, we had 335 people in church this past Sunday. You cannot show up for 335 people as your family in the way that you can show up for your family. And you just can't. It's just like impossible to do. And so I want us to care about each other, and we do need to have people in the church who care for us and show up for us. But to assume that all of us could do that for all of us is just like it's just not possible. Yeah. And so sometimes I hesitate to use that language. But this idea that the church, us collectively, can show up for us collectively and take care of us collectively, I think is a really powerful idea. And I think that's why God created so many times for the church to gather. And there is power in that when it happens. So.
Yeah. How I already know your answer, but I'm gonna ask you anyways.
Give me a chance to say it.
In the ever increasing online space, do you think online can ever give you the same kind of effect that in person can?
No, I don't. I don't. I think online church is great for when you are trying to learn about a church, get a handle on it. I think it's a great supplement to something that you're doing. I mean, I learn from people. I think you can learn things from an online church, but you cannot practice them.
Yeah.
Right? So I can learn from people online, but I can't practice it. And we will continue to do online services. I know that there's so many people who watch us online before they ever come. I struggle to believe, never say never, struggle to believe that I will become somebody who says, like, we have, I don't know, like an online campus. I don't want to say that necessarily because that makes it sound like I'm criticizing people that have that. But this idea of, like, we believe that online church can be your church. Every rule has an exception. You know, somebody's going to point out to me that there's a group of people somewhere where they watch a service online and then they meet together in small groups afterwards and they talk about it and the whole thing. And so they're like, well, I don't go to church. I just watch sermon online, but then I gather with friends and we have church. And I was like, okay, so you do gather as the church.
Yeah.
Right? Like you gather as the church then because you get together and you live in community with one another, right? Like I truly believe there is no such thing as just me and Jesus. And, I mean, I think even some of the contemplatives who you read about in ancient times who went and lived out in the wilderness by themselves and stuff, many of them like lost their dang minds. And as much as it was cool that they like spent all their time in prayer, they also be kind of like
crazy.
Yeah, they were and lost touch.
Yeah.
And so, yes, we do need time with the Father alone. That is important.
Yeah.
But we also need time with other believers. And in some ways that helps us stay grounded.
Yeah.
It helps us stay grounded. And so, no, I don't believe that only online works.
Yeah.
I think it's a great supplement if you can't be there, or if you're on vacation, or you're trying to find a church, or you want to learn something. I watch other people's services to learn from them,
Yep.
but you can't practice it.
Yeah. What about VR church?
I can't even with VR church. That no, I don't believe that's the same either.
Mm.
Anybody could be anybody online.
Yeah. I love uh, I love you.
I love you too.
I love you too. That's not what I was going to say. I do love you, man. Um, I love one time you said this. It's everywhere now. Just in case you need a reminder, you can just go back to this exact moment.
Thanks.
Um, where we were talking about online um, churches and stuff like that, and just this idea that like someone like Tyler Staton, who I love, I can learn a lot of things from watching him preach, but Tyler Staton will never be my pastor
Unless you move to Portland.
unless I move to Portland and was like actually a part of that community.
Right. Yep.
And there's something important about having gatherings and actually being a part of a church in that way. And not just learning from this distant person, but like somebody you can interact with and talk with. And when hard things in your life are going on, you have other people that you can open yourself up to and talk with them through. It's important. And online sometimes doesn't give us that at all. If anything, it allows us to just kind of hide and act as though things are better than what they truly are. There's something, in the online space. And there's always that person who'll probably be like, nope, that's not the same for me. But I think we all know worship online on a video is never the same or as good as in person. I love you, Jim Blake. If you're watching this, you don't sound as good on the live stream.
He would not even argue with you.
He would not even argue with me.
He would tell you, yeah, you got to be in the room.
You
He
gotta
would
be in the room.
say that.
And the live stream's not going to pick up other people worshiping alongside of you. And there's something really special when you're in that room and you're with a body of believers where everyone is saying, I worship you right now, Lord. No matter, like, we're all coming from different backgrounds, but we're all coming here with this purpose to say, I want to worship God. There's something truly special about that. I think it's so beautiful. But is there any, as we're kind of starting to wrap up, is there any like last thoughts that you have? Any last things you want to have people know? Maybe it's something you didn't get to say during your sermon time or not, or coming out of this podcast time that you want people to know.
Yeah, I think with all of these three things, and with so many of the things we talk about, and I've said this before, but all of these things are things that we all have room to grow in. And we all need to have the fourth G, right? We all need to be gracious to each other in that journey. I think too often sermons like generosity or gratitude or gathering are used as weapons against people instead of invitations for people, right? So like instead of us using gathering to assess like where is God calling me to gather more, and then celebrating the ones that I do, too often instead we use it as a weapon to say, well, Trevor doesn't gather. You know what I mean? Like instead of me saying, hey, where's God calling me to do more gathering? I look down the row and I say, well, they need to gather more. Yeah. And why aren't they? Did they hear the sermon? Why are they not gathering?
They didn't invite me to dinner.
Yeah, exactly. And we, instead of wrestling with what do I need to do, we immediately blame others for what they're not doing.
Yeah.
And we do that with generosity, right? Mm-hmm. Instead of assessing what do I need to give, we look down and be like, I don't know why Moneybags isn't listening to the sermon over here because they need to be handling this. Or gratitude, like we apply it to everybody else. And instead of us journeying together, all of us wrestling with what is God calling me to do, because I really believe if the whole church, instead of deciding what other people need to do, if the whole church said, God, what do I need to do? And responded to that, that crazy things would happen.
Yeah.
Legitimately crazy things. If all of us were just concerned with what is the Lord asking me to do? Yeah. And again, when we gather, there is part of what the church does that is accountability, because I think when we're wrestling with things, right? When we wrestle with things, oftentimes what happens then is I come to Trevor and I say, hey, Trevor, I'm really wrestling with this. What do you, here's what's going on. What do you think?
Yeah.
And then the church can speak into my life because I have opened myself up to it,
Yeah.
And that is really beautiful and healthy. But too often we finish a series like this with expectations instead of invitations.
Yeah.
Ooh, that was good. Not planned. We have too many expectations and not enough invitations. Yeah. And I think that's really what I want, is I want this series to be invitations for all of us to grow in these things instead of expectations that we put on others for what they're not doing.
Yeah.
There you go.
That's good. That's good. Yeah. And so we're moving on to...
Dang, I got to write that down. That's super good.
Got to pop it in.
Well, that's got to save that one.
If you guys hear that in an upcoming sermon, you guys
know
where that came from.
That was like the first time I thought of like intimate and infinite. That was like, oh, dang, I got to stick in that.
Where did your inspiration come for this?
Yeah.
Well, there was this podcast.
Come on. All right. Anyway, sorry. Yes, next week. Take us there.
Next week, we're not kicking off a series.
This week.
Yeah, this upcoming Sunday. We're not kicking off a series. We're doing a one-off.
Ask anything.
Yeah.
Yeah. So again, this Sunday, you'll have a blank piece of scratch paper. Yeah, write down a question. We'll try to get to them. I'm going to answer them live. Yep. And I'm asking people to kind of bring questions about the news, which I'm a little anxious about, but I think could be really good. So we'll see what happens. And maybe we'll do a podcast on that too with some of the leftover questions. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. We haven't talked about that yet, but that might happen.
Because we also have Thanksgiving coming.
Yeah, it's a short week next week. So we'll see if we get there. And then, after that, then we have our series, Sacred and Simple Christmas. Really looking forward to that Advent series too. So
yeah, it's going to be awesome. Well, hey, Hope Community Church, thank you so much for joining us for this episode of the series recap. It's been an awesome conversation, and we'll see you guys next time.
We love y'all.
Love y'all. Peace. Thanks for listening to this episode of the series recap. The series recap exists to encourage people at Hope Community Church to continue to engage with their faith and their formation even after Sunday is over. Our hope is that we can keep formational ideas and concepts in front of us during the week to help redirect our attention back to Jesus as we learn to practice the way of Jesus. We'll see you guys next time. God bless.